So before we get started with this video, there is something that I want to talk about first in regards to the channel. If you don't really care and just want to watch the video, check out the timestamps in the description down below. But for those of you that do care, firstly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for not only getting me to 20,000 subscribers, but also getting me to 20,000 before the end of the year, a goal that I really wanted to reach and managed to, so thank you. I really hate to make this brief, but I didn't want to make another video without at least mentioning this milestone. I do have a special planned for this occasion, but in case you haven't been following along with everything that's been happening with the channel lately, I just have so many projects that I'm currently working on, and it's kind of hard to focus on just one thing. Between reaching 20,000 subscribers and being invited onto Paleo Rewind this year, not to mention some of the other things that I wanted to get done this month on top of it being the holidays and all, it's safe to say that I'm pretty busy right now. But all of the projects that I'm currently working on are larger projects that won't be out for a while, which is why I decided to do this video, a smaller yet still interesting topic that I'm able to get out, hopefully by Christmas. No promises, or if it comes out after Christmas, then you can consider it a little late Christmas gift to you guys. But yeah, anyways, happy holidays everyone. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with this video. So today's topic was actually suggested to me by Dino Dad Reviews on my Discord server. I love going around the internet to find topics to cover for the channel, which has resulted in a pretty long list of things that I eventually want to get through. But every now and again, when someone suggests something that I find interesting enough, I'll take some time to look into that suggestion. So if you guys have any, I urge you guys to leave suggestions for me down below of rare, lost, and or obscure paleomedia for me to cover on the channel. I can't promise that I'll get to them right away, but if they're interesting enough, I'll add them onto my list and find time to cover them later. And listen, I know some of you that have already left suggestions for a while that I've expressed some interest in covering might be irritated that I haven't covered those topics yet. But come on, give me a break. I'm only one person. It's not me ignoring it, it's just me trying to prioritize my topics. Basically what I'm saying is they're not as important, sorry. But no, seriously, it's not me ignoring them, it's just I need to find a way to present them on my channel that feels natural and not forced or rushed, okay? If I'm gonna cover topics that you guys suggest, I want it to at least be genuine. Anyways, today's topic is centered around a short story that was released in 1980 by Robert Silverberg titled Our Lady of the Sauropods. The story was originally released on the September cover of Omni magazine, a science fiction magazine that typically held articles and short stories based around fantasy, parapsychology, and science. And Our Lady of the Sauropods was one of the short stories that featured within the magazine. And it's a rather fascinating story that takes place sometime in the future and is about a woman that gets stranded on an artificially made conservation habitat specifically made for the dinosaurs that's located outside of Earth. This habitat is known as Dino Island, and it bears many similarities to the science fiction thriller novel Jurassic Park, and you'll see these similarities as we get through the story. Apparently, Our Lady of the Sauropods was Silverberg's return from a 7-year hiatus from making short stories. He mentioned during the introduction to the story how he decided to stop short fiction stories due to the poor returns he would get for doing them. He said, "I abandoned short story writing in 1973 after doing shorts Between the Galaxies, and felt only relief, no regret at giving it up. Short stories were just too much trouble to do. You needed a stunning idea for one thing. The ideal science fiction story, I think, should amaze and delight, and you had to develop it with cunning and craft, working at the edge of your nervous system every moment, polishing and repolishing to hide all of those extraneous knees and elbows. Doing a good short story at that level of quality meant a week or two of strenuous work, for which the immediate cash reward in the 1970s was likely to be about $250, and then maybe $100 every year or two thereafter if you had written something good enough to be reprinted in anthologies. While I can't say I'm well versed with Silverberg's work, I can say that this short story fascinated me, and I have more to say about it than I initially thought. But of course, before we get into my overall thoughts, let's check out the story itself. So as mentioned earlier, the story revolves around an unnamed female scientist who's sent to a man-made miniature globe created to house cloned dinosaurs that's located not far from Earth. This artificial globe, or island, or planet, or whatever the hell this is supposed to be, is literally called Dino Island. She was sent here on what was supposed to be a 30-day research field tour to study the dinosaurs, but instead the module in which she was traveling in had a meltdown and crashed into the jungles of the island, planet, whatever it's supposed to be, and another shuttle is not scheduled to arrive for another 30 days after hers. The story is structured in a way where our character is recording the events that happened to her on the island after they occur. And as we progress through the 30 days that she's stranded there, we see how the island is slowly affecting her mental state, and we slowly begin to lose track of what's really happening and what our character thinks is happening in the story. The story begins on August 21st with our character hiding out in a cleft away from the dinosaurs shortly after the module meltdown. Terrified, she spends this first entry of a recording talking about the severity of her situation. She's a lone, unarmed woman in the middle of a habitat unit created to house dangerous flesh-eating dinosaurs that she's at the heart of, with all of her resources being burnt up and destroyed in the wreckage, and she's doubting her chances of survival. She even has her first encounter with one of the dinosaurs as it sticks its head through the cleft. It's revealed to be a Struthomymus, which our character shoos away. A short time passes before we get a little more insight into why our character is here, as she starts talking about the possibility of her research tour being purposely sabotaged. Up to this point, she's mentioned something called Habitat Vronsky, which seems to be the place that she was stationed at before making her trip to Dino Island. It seems that she was a part of a science research group at this station where she was getting tired of all of the irritating aspects of her job and had been longing for a research trip to Dino Island, where she would be by herself. Of course, things were supposed to go more smoothly, but she ended up in this situation. It's at this point where she also mentions Dr. Sarber, the director of the group who she's had several disagreements on in regards to opening Dino Island for tourists, with Dr. Sarber more focused on the financial gain that they could achieve from it, and our character who seems to be against the dangerous idea that could prove to be a distraction to the whole purpose of Dino Island. Not to be used for the sake of profit, but for the sake of science. Due to this feud between her and Sarber reaching to the point where they now hate each other, and the odd behavior that he exhibited before her departure, which was him being oddly nice to her, she begins to suspect that he was the one that sabotaged her module as an attempt to kill her, and he must have thought that even if the crash didn't kill her, surely the dinosaurs would. Sometime after, she becomes more rational about her situation and realizes that even if she ran into a dinosaur like a tyrannosaur, she would most likely be ignored by it due to her small size. Instead of being frightened by the island and its inhabitants, she actually sees it as a good opportunity to explore and study the dinosaurs, since there's not much she can really do anyways in terms of calling for help. As evening falls, she manages to find an area roamed with brachiosaurs, triceratops, and Struthomymus, which she studies from afar. In seeing a sight like this, our character no longer feels fearful of this place, but rather exhilarated, as she describes the experience of seeing dinosaurs this close as nothing less than astonishing. And she even points out how ingenious it was for them to create a habitat unit outside of Earth to keep the dinosaurs away from civilization. In the story, she says,
"What a brilliant idea it was to put all the Olsen processed dinosaur reconstructs aboard a little L5 habitat of their very own, and turn them loose to recreate the Mesozoic. After that unfortunate San Diego event with the Tyrannosaur, it became politically unfeasible to keep them anywhere on Earth, I know. But even so, this is a better scheme."
Yeah, you heard that correctly. A San Diego event that involved a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Keep in mind that this short story predates the first Jurassic Park novel by 10 years, and even farther from the Lost World novel and the movie adaptations. I'll leave you guys to come to your own conclusions from that information. She praises the concepts and advancements made to bring Dino Island and its inhabitants to life, as she sees them as a thing of wonder and excitement. But that feeling is eventually lost when she comes to the realization that she's still stranded and could become a meal to some of these creatures if she's not careful enough. That night, she has the first of many strange dreams about the dinosaurs. In this one, the dinosaurs were doing random activities normally done by humans, like playing a card game and knitting. She doesn't dwell on the dreams for too long though, as she's more focused on her hunger. Up until now, all she's eaten were raw cicad cones, so to change things up, she decides to go on the hunt for some of the smaller animals placed in the habitat, like frogs. She attempts to hunt the frogs at a nearby creek where a lone Corythosaurus is hanging out. As she tries to find her food, she would make her first encounter with one of the carnivores of the island. A Tyrannosaurus named Belshazzar, the original T-Rex of Dino Island. As she was hunting, Belshazzar crashed through the trees and took down the Corythosaurus, all in front of our character, who, in order to stay hidden, slowly sunk her body into the mud and water, leaving her face just above the surface to be able to see everything happen in front of her. Too scared to move, she just lies there in the water as the T-Rex eats its fill. And as if this situation wasn't bad enough for her, the T-Rex then comes closer to the creek for a drink of water, and it's practically standing right in front of her as it leans its head into the water for a drink. But luckily, she makes it out unnoticed, and Belshazzar moves along his way. Before she can even think about moving though, a smaller Tyrannosaur appears and takes advantage of the left behind Corythosaurus carcass and indulges in it, leaving our character to stay still within the water for another while. Once that Tyrannosaur moves along, instead of going back to her camp, she realizes that the T-Rex left behind a lot of the Corythosaurus, to which she then begins to butcher and feed on. At first, her body rejects the meat, as not only is it raw, but it has a powerfully sweet and strong taste to it. But eventually she is able to keep it down for the sake of preventing starvation. The following days consist of her scaling the island to scavenge for food, find new spots to make camp in, and study the dinosaurs. She's also begun to develop a feeling that the dinosaurs know she's there on the island with them, and that she's clearly something different from them. She gets this from the looks they give her when they notice her presence, and it's not a look of some mindless dumb animal, but a look of knowing and curiosity. She imagines them staring and discussing her among their herd in packs, as if the dinosaurs were the ones observing and studying her, but she ultimately dismisses this thought, at least for now. As the days go by, she continues to study the dinosaurs until she makes a serious mistake climbing a tree to get a better view of an iguanodon herd. One of the branches failed to hold her weight, and she fell down the tree all the way to the ground, managing to grab a hold of one branch to slow her fall enough to prevent it from being fatal. But this mistake has rendered her left leg useless, along with causing possible internal injuries. She's able to find shelter in a nearby rock cave, but her condition worsens as a fever starts to ensue as well. She spends the next couple of days in this shelter completely immobilized, only to find out the dinosaurs have started to bring her food. It's almost as if they've taken notice of her injuries and are helping her by bringing her eggs, cicad cones, and even meat. She's doubtful that this is even happening to her at all, wondering if she's hallucinating, delirious from the fever, or if she's simply just going crazy. She even says,
I don't think I've gone insane. If I'm sane enough to be worried about my sanity, how crazy can I be? Or am I just fooling myself? There's a terrible conflict between what I think I perceive going on here and what I know I ought to be perceiving.
On top of this, her dreams about the dinosaurs begin to escalate. One dinosaur that she has been consistently studying throughout the whole story was the brachiosaurs, and in her next dream, it's specifically about the largest brachiosaur of the herd, which is called Bertha. In her dream, she saw all of the dinosaurs standing out in a meadow connected to one another by what looked like telephone lines, with the central connection being Bertha herself. Then, one of the smaller dinosaurs brings her a line to connect to herself, and when she does, she's able to feel the telepathic thoughts of the dinosaurs. When she awakes, she tries so hard to convince herself that this is all in her head, and that there's no thoughts within the dinosaurs that goes beyond eating. But no matter how many times she tells herself that, she continues to have these dreams and develops a sense of warmth and love from the dinosaurs within them. Outside of the dreams, the dinosaurs also show to be more comfortable around her, as not only the smaller ones approach her, but also the larger ones. As she makes a fast recovery from her injuries and continues to watch the dinosaurs, she begins to see them less as a group of animals coexisting with each other, but rather a community, and she feels that they are accepting her into their community. And she's drawn to them, but most of all, she's drawn to Bertha. She slowly but surely gives in to the idea that Bertha is what connects her and all of the other dinosaurs to each other. And she talks about Bertha as if she's a god. She begins to talk about how the dinosaurs were unfairly revoked of a chance to live and thrive. And on top of it all, humans only see them as dumb beasts, completely rejecting any and all ideas that these animals could have had a civilization of their own, with poetry, philosophies, and language. Humans say they're beasts, but humans are ignorant and inferior to the great giants that used to roam the world. And it's because of these giants' demise that humans even got a chance to live at all. It's because of this she finally embraces the community. She says,
I am the chosen one. I am the vehicle. I am the bringer of rebirth. The beloved one. The necessary one. Our Lady of the Sauropods am I. The Holy One, the Prophetess, the Priestess. Is this madness? Then it is madness, and I embrace it.
And finally, the 30th day comes. The shuttle from Habitat Vronsky makes its way to the transit lock of the island, where our character and hundreds of dinosaurs await for its arrival. As the ship lands and the door opens, it's revealed to be Dr. Sarber himself. He steps out of the shuttle in clear shock of what he's seeing, but before he can do anything, Belshazzar is signaled to attack and kill Sarber, to which he succeeds. Our main character, whose name is finally revealed to be Anne, as that was one of the last words that Sarber said before his death, realizes that this is just the beginning. In the final lines of the story, she says,
And this is only the beginning. Habitat Vronsky lies just 120 kilometers away. Elsewhere in the Lagrange Belt are hundreds of other habitats ripe for conquest. The Earth itself is within easy reach. I have no idea yet how it will be accomplished, but I know it will be done, and done successfully, and I will be the instrument of which it is done. I stretch forth my arms to the mighty creatures that surround me. I feel their strength, their power, their harmony. I am one with them and they with me. The great race has returned, and I am its priestess. Let the small hairy ones tremble.
So, this was definitely a strange story. I feel that there were some parts that were purposely left to be vague as a way to keep things up for interpretation to the reader. This could be a story about a woman's deteriorating mental state on an island of dinosaurs, and everything that she says that's going on has to be taken with a grain of salt. Or this could be a story where everything is actually happening and this woman has essentially given in to be a part of what almost feels like a dinosaur-like cult to take over the world. If it's the latter, then the story is essentially giving us a completely different depiction of the dinosaurs in terms of behavior, one that expresses them in a much more intelligent manner. And if this is the case, then you could technically refer back to the very first dinosaur encounter from earlier in the book, when the Struthiomimus first found Anne in the cleft. That Struthi could have notified the rest of the dinosaurs on the island that there was a human presence among them, to which they may have ignored at first, but eventually realized the opportunity and began to take care of her and used this as a way to slowly conform her to their community so that they could take over the world, I guess. I don't know. This is definitely a strange idea to consider, and I'm sure that there's plenty of other more intellectual ideas and interpretations of this work that can be made here. But I am small-brained and can't be trusted with heavy topics like this. But all jokes aside, I have to admit, the idea of utilizing dinosaurs to showcase the slow downfall of one's mental state is interesting, and is the reason why I was drawn to this story. No matter how I look at this story, I can't help but feel that the island and the dinosaurs are doing something to Anne mentally. Whether it's the dinosaurs doing it on purpose, or if it's completely her own mind that's doing it all and making her go crazy. Overall, I found myself enjoying this story more than I first anticipated, and I'm glad it was recommended recommend it to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please, have a Merry Christmas.